Confronting high credit card debt can feel scary, but the good news is, if you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt, financial relief options are now available. National Debt Relief is currently offering debt relief designed to reduce what you owe and put you on the fast track to becoming debt-free. If you qualify for debt relief, you may be able to pay back less than what you owe and save thousands of dollars. Just visit nationaldebtrelief.com. Imagine only paying one low monthly program payment you can afford and saving money as you become debt-free. National Debt Relief has already helped bring debt relief to over 550,000 U.S. consumers, earning thousands of five-star reviews and an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. You're stronger than your credit card debt. Let today be the day you start turning things around. Take the first step and visit nationaldebtrelief.com to see what debt relief you may qualify for. That's nationaldebtrelief.com.
You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 36, Ascension, Part 2.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Charlene Schmidt.
And I'm Marina Kravchuk. Just like our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss each and every episode of this animated series, discover what makes each one of them special, and see if there are any morals, meanings, or messages that we may have learned.
This week, we get information for Ascension Part 2. Please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is an in-depth review podcast, so if you've not seen this episode, what are you doing? Just go watch the season already. Put us on pause. Do that, then come back, and we're still going to be here, so don't worry about it. We'll be fine.
Mission Log Prodigy is produced for YouTube and as a regular podcast, so please be sure to engage the like and share buttons and subscribe to us here on Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel. And if you are listening to audio-only version, please leave us a rating and a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow Mission Log Prodigy on X, formerly known as Twitter, at ML_Prodigy, and now on Instagram at Mission Log Prodigy to keep up with all our latest news and updates.
All right, and let's also remind everybody why our podcast is so unique. We want to hear from the cadets, the younger Prodigy fans out there who would like to share our thoughts, or who would like to share their thoughts on the show. You're going to hear our thoughts too. But right now we want to hear what cadets think about the episode Brink. So please record a voice message and then tell us the following. What is your first name and age? Did you like the episode? What was your favorite part? And what did you learn? Then send that file to missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com, and please make sure it reaches our inboxes no later than October 26th so we can feature you at the end of the show.
And we have one more thing to tell you before we jump into this week's episode, and that is to tell you all about our giveaway, where you can win some pretty nice Prodigy merch, something like a set of all 3 Prodigy novels, for instance. And that is just one of the prizes that you could win. So head over to the link in the description of this episode, and you'll find a link to enter the giveaway. And speaking of which, also stay tuned to the end of this video, because we will be giving you a secret code that you can only find here in this episode. With all that said, let's kick things off with this show. Let's answer the same questions we ask of our cadets. So, Char, did you like the episode?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we know that Prodigy can go hard.
Yeah.
But until this episode, I didn't know it could go this hard. Wow, this was an intense conclusion to this two-fighter. Like, everything is on another level. Everything got heightened, whether it was the action, the emotion. It's weaved into the beautiful display of our crew being at their absolute best. What more do you want? This is good entertainment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I loved it. I mean, intense is to put it mildly. It was like, you can't take my eyes off the screen exciting. I have to say, generally speaking, this season's two-parters are truly something spectacular. I love the fact that by now, I mean, and we're already kind of heading towards the end of the season, all the main story threads that we kind of kept track during the season are now basically interwoven. All the characters are present. They're all moving in the same direction. I mean, okay, we don't know what's going on with Iltheran, but that's obviously coming soon.
Yeah.
So, do you have a favorite part?
Yeah, I definitely do. And it's got to be when Dal was cheering, "That's my crew." Because that is me every single week, especially right before we're doing this show. I'm just like, I love these kids. That's my crew. How about you?
Everything that has to do with Zero in this episode. I mean, and it's not, it is obviously very sad, and it was heartbreaking to watch them, but literally every scene that involved Zero was top notch. It was amazing. Now, we know that as a Medusan, they will probably survive. Nevertheless, this was a real sacrifice, so everything going on with Zero was incredibly emotional and very dramatic. And I really enjoyed that part where Majel is being absolutely chill. And meanwhile, she's offering and delivering a very dangerous solution to get the Incursor out and away from Voyager. Sort of like just follow my lead. I loved it.
Yeah.
So let's see, what did you learn?
Well, to sum it up, as concisely as I can, I ended up saying small acts of bravery add up, and that's how our crew achieved victory. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with that.
That's it. Yeah, but that's it exactly. I mean, at the end when Admiral Janeway does her beautiful speech, she says, there is no single hero to save the day. Even though, how intense and incredible this situation was, but everybody contributed and everybody had a role to play, and that's how they made it through.
Yep, 100%. Well, thank you, Marina, for your answers to this week's questions. And now it's time for the recap for Ascension Part 2. It's written by Alex Hansen and directed by Sean Bishop. After a devastating torpedo shockwave, Voyager's dead in the water. Impulse engines are offline in the Nova Squad flyers, but Majel finds a fix so she and her crewmates can face off against the drones, closing in on Voyager. The drones pick the ship apart, deck by deck, causing hull breaches and subsequent evacuations. On the Protostar, Gwyn cannot stand to watch the drones mercilessly attack Voyager, even if it means risk to herself and the Protostar. She pleads with Chakotay that they have to do something. The Protostar swoops in, with Murph handling all the pew-pew-pew, and Jankum unloads a slick trick that slows the drones down. Dal watches them destroy the drones, cheering, "That's my crew!" They aren't out of hot water yet. On Solum, Ascensia wants to see what her latest toy will do, but Wesley tells her that space, time, and thought are not to be weaponized. She thinks he talks too much and activates a device around his neck that sends shocks through his body, and Ascensia sees a vision of Voyager blowing up. She likes this visual and orders the Rev 1 to fire the Incursor. Dal spots the launch of the weapon, and Majel warns Voyager, but the ship cannot move away fast enough. The Protostar maneuvers to provide cover fire, but the Rev 1's energy-draining beam hits them first. All they can do is helplessly watch as the weapon impacts Voyager. It breaches Shuttle Bay 3, but no explosion? The EMH and Dr. Noam wonder if it was a dud, but Zero senses that more is going on. Tysus and a few other officers visit the shuttle bay to investigate, but not for long. As he scans, a series of beeps indicate a countdown, and indeed, a slow-moving explosion starts moving from the weapon through the ship. An ensign trapped under a cargo container calls out for help, and Tysus frees her. She quickly returns the favor when Tysus almost falls into the explosion's path and drags him out to the corridor. Unfortunately, once there, she is shocked to see Tysus's face drastically aged. This ensign reports to Janeway that the blast wave is spreading temporal radiation and that Tysus is down. Janeway orders containment fields around the shuttle bay to contain the radiation, and that seems to work for now. On the Protostar, controls aren't coming back online due to the power drain. Chakotay hails Voyager for help and is relieved to see that Janeway is still alive. "Hold, please," she says, because she's called for reinforcements, and Admiral Jellicoe appears on the main view screen. As usual, he has bad news. Help is days away, and he's truly sorry. So much for that. In sickbay, the EMH and Dr. Noam determine that Tysus isn't suffering from radiation poisoning, it's old age. When the ensign who rescued Tysus reports that the area of the shuttle bay affected by the field looked decayed, the EMH deduces that chronometric deterioration is accelerating time on anything it touches. Everyone and everything on Voyager will die a geriatric death if the weapon isn't dismantled. But who can do it? Anyone near the weapon will lose entire decades of life in mere moments. The hollow emitters in the area are probably rusted over, so the EMH is out. Zero volunteers. They do not need a body to function, nor do Medusans age the same way as organics. They insist they are the only choice and must try. Aboard the Nova Squad shuttles, Majel leads the fleet in an attack formation where they will concentrate their fire against Ascensia's forces. Their chances of success are not worth mentioning for morale purposes, but she also knows they can somehow make a difference. In the shuttle bay, Zero enters and instantly feels the effects of the radiation aging their corporeal body. This makes the rest of the walk to the weapon even more of a struggle. On the Protostar, Gwyn wants to know why Jankum isn't working on boosting the shields and isn't in fact using power for the vehicle replicator instead. Jankum cannot fully explain now, but will later because Zero's going to need what he is making. Back on the Nova Squad shuttles, Majel observes that Ascensia's drones predict their maneuvers as if they know the Starfleet manual. So Dal suggests it's time they get unpredictable. And lo and behold, the seemingly illogical move becomes their fighting chance. The pilots forget what they learned in their training and break out the real wackadoo moves, sending drones into collision courses with asteroids. On Voyager, a drastically aging Zero makes it to the weapon, but cannot find a power relay that will disable it. They do notice, however, that the weapon can only lock onto one Starfleet vessel at a time. Lock it onto my ship, Majel says, and she will ram her ship into Ascensia's. Protecting Starfleet is the logical thing to do. She and the other Nova Squad pilots will perform the Boothby Supernova, a rarely used move Ascensia's forces won't expect. As Zero's body weakens, they input the locking commands just as they collapse. Whatever happens next, they're glad they'll be on the journey with their family. The weapon loosens itself from Voyager and begins making its way to Majel's ship. Follow my lead, she says, as the three shuttles open their coolant locks and begin the Boothby Supernova. The pilots eject, and their shuttles ram into Ascensia's ship as the weapon follows. Ascensia's ship goes boom real good. It's a happy reunion in the shuttle bay, filled with many hugs, and Zeph even admits that Dal is one heck of a flyer. And then Zero shows up in their new body, which is not shabby at all for a rush job. The design is very much like what they made for themselves way back when, but sleeker and with sensory inputs thanks to Jankum's help. It's perfect. Janeway and Voyager senior officers, minus Tysus, show up, and Janeway showers praise on her officers for the team effort it took to survive this trial by fire. And now they have a new challenge. Voyager and the Protostar are the closest ships to Solum, and Admiral Jellicoe wants them there. On Solum, Wesley taunts Ascensia a little bit as she witnesses defeat, but she's undeterred. She's learned a lot from seeing how no other Starfleet ship came to Voyager and the Protostar's aid, and they have no idea what's coming next. To be continued next week.
Oh,
Woo.
yeah.
Yeah.
Things are just getting more and more complicated.
Nothing at all important happened. Nothing.
No.
Well, and speaking of which, you have a lot of fantastic observations to go through. So how about you lead us into that?
Yeah, so as usual, we have wonderful references to prior Trek productions. As a matter of fact, not only productions, but also we already had some items show up that were mentioned in Voyager novels, and in this case, we have something coming out of one of the Enterprise novels. There's a moment when Commander Tysus and some of the crew, when they go into Shuttle Bay 3, and he sees the Incursa punching through the ship, and he just exclaims, "Great Uzave," which is Uzave being a deity worshipped by the Andorians. And Enterprise fans, correct me if I'm wrong, I did some research, it did come from one of the Enterprise novels. It was never actually mentioned on screen. Having said that, the crew that accompanies him, we see a couple of Binars, species first mentioned on TNG, and I think we also may have caught a glimpse of them in the previous episode in part 1, moment where Dal is recording his log and we can see the living construct being dismantled from Protostar. So that's, lovely. Again, wonderful touches here and there. Something came up, and that's a pretty deep cut, I think. Image references Cerberusian gene therapy, something that may help Commander Tysus to get restored, so to speak. This does seem to be a reference to Cerberus 2 from an episode of TNG called Too Short a Season, which actually deals there is a medical process invented on that planet that is capable of rejuvenating aged bodies. So again, we have this delightful connections to the larger Star Trek universe that fits rather lovely with the story. Speaking of the story, we talked about it, in the first part about Ascensia as a villain, coming a little bit somewhat mustache twirling in part one, but I think it's still,
I believe I said that.
Yeah, in the second part, I think it's pretty apparent just how dangerous it is. Devious and especially calculating. If you think everything that's happening with this incredible weaponry that she's wielding, it's all directly, specifically to the end that she is pursuing, which is to make as much damage as possible to Starfleet and Federation at large. Drones that anticipate Starfleet maneuvers, specifically Starfleet maneuvers, are programmed to be locked only to Starfleet ships. And, we also see that moment, just how exactly she got to this height, so to speak, Zerp Solem using absolutely unbelievable weaponry, torturing Wesley. So that kind of explains where all this horrific weaponry is coming from. And of course, that last moment, that is kind of very much a mood dampener, where she seems to be completely unconcerned by the fact that, it is a momentary defeat for her, not much else when Rev 1 blows up. There's a more, important moment for her to point out. Nobody's coming to help Voyager and Protostar. Starfleet is completely unprepared for what's to come. So that is scary. It is scary. Speaking of Wesley, we don't see a lot of him, just a few scenes, but he does seem to be in a pretty bad state. It's sort of like teetering between, he's still fighting, he's still able to kind of needle her. It's like, yeah, didn't you get, you didn't get what you wanted. And at the same time, sort of total dejection, which is scary, seeing how we know that there's so much trouble in the large scheme of things, with the timeline deteriorating.
Certainly.
I do have questions, incidentally. How did he survive the explosion of the time cigarette? Was there some kind of a last moment, I don't know, equivalent of Traveler beam out? I don't know, but seeing how he's the only one left, he obviously did it somehow by himself, probably. Yeah, and how does Ascensia possess technology to contain him? That's a big one. So I don't know if we're going to learn this, or is that going to remain a mystery. Bottom line is Wesley is in a pretty bad shape.
He does. He's not looking good.
No,
poor guy.
No, and I feel sorry for the poor guy. Yeah. Another observation, and this one, on one hand, it is entertaining in a way. On the other hand, it is scary because it kind of ties into the whole thing that no one's helping us. If you think about most of TNG era series episodes, when there's trouble and there's a distress beacon or something, there's always somebody in the sector. Starfleet reinforcements are on the way. It's not days away. It's right there. Somebody caught the signal. Somebody caught something on sensors. Somebody was visually in range or something. So seemingly, somebody is there who would always come for help, if not Starfleet themselves as some kind of a ship that's doing it. Except, of course, Voyager, because Voyager was by themselves.
A little bit out of range.
So I guess in this case, our crew, well, I should say crews, Janeway crew and Chakotay's crew are somewhat uniquely qualified to deal with things without having any backup. Nevertheless, yeah. So this was the Jellicoe saying, like, sorry, no cavalry is coming. It's very un-Starfleet-like almost.
Well, he said this many times throughout the season about how stretched thin Starfleet is, but this is really where the reality of that situation really means something, if you ask me. Yeah. Where
nobody's coming.
They really are on their own. Nobody's coming. Nobody can come to their rescue, and the resources of Starfleet are definitely decimated. We talked before about how what happened at the end of season 1 really destroyed and damaged a lot of ships. Plus, then what they have available is going toward the Romulan evacuation. And I don't know if Starfleet's been in this kind of position, certainly not in recent history. So it's it's a lot for everybody.
One of the things that, again, it's something that's specifically introduced in Prodigy, which I absolutely love. The concept of this incursor weapon. What a terrifying thing. I mean, this chronometric deterioration that occurs. We already have a lot of episodes all throughout Star Trek universe dealing with time. You know, time lengthened, time shortened, got stuck in time, got lost in time, this and this. I mean, Prodigy already had, poor Rock, who obviously lost, we don't know how many years, but definitely years in season 1 during the time paradox and time amok. Here we have everything sort of the opposite of it. Yeah, very short time is passing, but at the same time, the person involved is losing even more time. Zero is losing years in the matter of just minutes. And it's kind of horrifying to watch, even though, again, as I kind of already mentioned, as a Medusan, they're probably not going to be affected by it as much. Nevertheless, it's pretty horrible.
It is. Watching the acceleration of Zero's body as it ages, wow, that really is an interesting thing to observe. So that gets my shout out to the art department this week, just because of the way they really show the atrophy, the way the fingers get bonier, the sagging skin. It's really nicely, horrifically done.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the struggle, you can see the pain, and all the while, Zero is still being Zero. I hate to be a bother. Sorry to interrupt. Might I trouble you for advice? It is just so incredibly touching and heartening and heartbreaking.
It's so very Zero. Can you help me dismantle this hardcore weapon that neither one of us understands? But of course, Rock is going to assist, because that is what Rock Talk does. Yes, love that. I was reminded of Star Trek II when Zero saves Voyager. It's the whole thing of where Spock goes into engineering and repairs the warp drive. I just kind of got flashbacks to that a little bit. And I don't know if you observed this or not, but I had a moment where I could not tell if I was feeling my own heartbeat or if the soundtrack had a heartbeat in it, just because at that particular point in the episode, the tension is so high. I'm like, was that me or the music? Maybe a little bit of both.
Probably both.
But that just kind of was a nice testament to how on the edge of my seat I was for this episode. Like, honestly, I didn't write down a ton of observations because I was so engrossed in the action watching this episode to write anything down. Like, I had to really actively make myself write some things because I was just having too much of a good time. One thing I really, 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 really love in this episode is using the vehicle replicator to quickly make a new body for Zero. This is just absolute genius and a nice callback to that piece of machinery, which we really haven't seen all season.
Season 1, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And I will admit, I might have shed a tear, maybe more than one, when Zero walked in that new containment suit. It's really just that perfect blending of the old style with a sleeker form, though, and with Jankum's enhancements, the sensory inputs. Like, it really is just the next perfect step of evolution for Zero, and I'm so happy for them. So good. Yeah. And then one other thing I did observe at the very end, you mentioned Janeway giving the speech. I kind of love how our senior-most officers really don't have much to do in this situation. Like, our crew does the very heavy lifting, and then Janeway gives the speech at the end, and like, it's not like she's even taking the glory or anything, but she does that, and everybody else kind of gets a little bit of a lift up from that, except for her, because she and Chakotay have that nice scene just after. But I thought that was pretty fun to see our crew doing that work. They're just watching.
Yeah, I love the fact that it comes off very naturally. It's not like you're sitting there wondering, well, how come, Chakotay didn't come up with this maneuver or ordered to do something else. It's a lovely way to show, again, just how much our crew has matured, how much they developed the personal responsibility, because they're the ones suggesting things to be done, actions and other things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Gwyn that persuades Chakotay to risk Protostar. He is so cautious. He doesn't want to risk the chance that Protostar might be destroyed, and then that's it. I mean, we are losing the timeline in this case. And, Hologram Janeway very helpfully chimes in. Wouldn't be the first time the cadets have surprised us, which is very true. You mentioned that moment between Janeway and Chakotay, and I have to agree, this was a lovely thing that was included, because, I mean, it comes right on the heels of Janeway going all the fantastic, like we survived the day and onwards, let's do the repairs. Because it serves as a sort of a behind-the-scenes reality check to the whole thing. Yes, we worked as a team, we won, and now we're gonna go and do all the things on Solum. But, at the same time, we get this moment where she reveals, after what I've seen today, I worry what the future brings. And it's sort of a very nice bookend to what Ascensia is saying. Now, Ascensia is very much, nobody's coming to help them, versus Janeway is like, nobody's coming to help us.
Right.
We're in the between the rock and the hard place.
That's right. Yeah. Ascension sees this as a minor obstacle. Just like, well, this is fine. I've got so many other toys I can play with. And meanwhile, Janeway's nervous. And if she's nervous, I'm nervous.
Yeah, because she, again, lest we forget, Voyager, I mean, she's dealt with it for 7 years. She's fully aware of the fact that she's in charge of a ship that is very small in a part of the galaxy that's very big, and there is nobody there, and she's already been in situations like this before. So it is a reality check. But having said that, I'm very curious what the behind-the-scenes conversation was between Jellicoe and Janeway at the very end of the episode, because they had to be one. Remember in part 1 we discussed about how awful and obnoxious Jellicoe was. It's like, okay, you're going back to your desk and you're going to be reassigned and the cadets are going to be reevaluated. Meanwhile, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, repairs are needed because we're going to Solum instead of the Earth as the previous orders directed. So there had to be a conversation where Janeway probably said, here's the situation. There's nobody but us that will be able to deal with it. We're the closest here anyway.
Right. Do you suppose Jellicoe had a slice of humble pie? Just a little bit?
I am sure of it. I'm sure. I mean, and the thing is that I do feel a bit bad for him because he's probably, as we constantly, reminded, Starfleet is stretched too thin. So he's probably fighting multiple battles on multiple fronts.
Yeah.
But at this point, we're dealing with this thing right now, and yes, like who's going to be better to deal with the situation other than Janeway and her ships?
Absolutely. If I were Admiral Jellicoe, I would just be constantly stressed. Like every moment I sit at my desk and just looking at the pad, how many crises are happening right now? Yeah. And then you just scroll for a solid 5 minutes because there's that many. I feel like that's his life, and I do feel bad for him in that respect.
Yeah, but of course, as it stands, he is the admiral that keeps bringing bad news. So in this case,
right? So he just has a lousy job, just in general.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the discussion. So, as usually in tradition of the mission log, we dedicate a great deal of time to discuss the finer points, sort of to see what types of morals, meanings, and messages we can discover. So, what did you find most meaningful and memorable in this episode?
Well, one thing I really love to see is how there's like a little bit of showing how academic knowledge and your training in Starfleet gets you so far. And then sometimes, though, it doesn't. And there's a really great balance of that here, especially between Dal and Majel. So for the Nova Squad, following training and procedure really wasn't doing them any favors in this episode. And it's kind of a reminder to me that sometimes you have to learn the rules just well enough to break them. And with Dal being a capable pilot and not even knowing the Starfleet manual, he actually has more freedom than maybe to think outside the box because he doesn't have those procedures stuck in his head. But it's really good you have to be flexible to recognize what you need and when, and that will help you be a really good, balanced Starfleet officer. That's something that only comes with experience, but that is something that Dal has a lot of. And really, Majel's not far behind. She's definitely come a long way. She excels with the procedure and the book knowledge. Dal's thinking on his feet. Together, they got themselves to safety. And of course, the display here of teamwork is... Really, I think this is our crew at their very best.
Yeah, I agree. Well, as you said, it's things that come with experience. And it's not only experience, it's the willingness to take a risk, which in this case, that's Majel, and ability to think outside of the box, which is Dal. So, it kind of makes me think of early Voyager, season 1, the episode Parallax, where several characters actually say that, and eventually Janeway repeats it. Like, sometimes you need to punch your way through. We have B'Elanna, who's a genius engineer, who's not, really not particularly friendly with Starfleet rules rules and regulations at the time. So it kind of falls into the whole thing where you have great knowledge, but you also have to have flexibility on how to apply it in order to make it out of a sticky situation.
Yeah. Also discipline. Which Majel, I think, is coming fully equipped with as a Vulcan, but Dal is also balancing himself out with that. And that's cool. Yeah. This all taps, of course, into our evergreen theme of working together, going where you are needed, but we're hitting a whole new level here because everybody contributes in some way to this edge of your seat thriller. Yeah. I mean, whether it's the Protostar putting herself and her crew on the line to help Voyager, or if it was Jankum improvising a new containment suit to help Zero's sacrifice, of course, not knowing what will come after they lose their body, but reassured nonetheless that they will face it with their family, and that is enough. I'm touched.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And of course, as we already mentioned, Majel is basically risking her life and, pulling off never before done maneuver. And Zeph and Dal just going along straight with her. It's like, you're not going to be doing this alone. We're coming with you. And of course, lest we forget, we have poor Wesley, who, being put in a horrible situation, is still managing to find ways to circumvent Ascension. So it's all, as we said, it's all kind of very nicely tying together. Yeah, and you mentioned what Zero said, that we have this wonderful moment when Zero's own words from a VD4 echo as they sacrifice themselves, where it's like, it's my family. So we have the repeat of the theme of found family here again, which is it was wonderful.
Yeah, that's a really nice bookend to calling back to that episode and everything that happened in that episode, because in a way what happens here is a bookend to that. And Angus Imrie really turns in a superb performance in this episode, really hitting every note. We got to talk a little bit more about Janeway's speech and what she called the small acts of bravery, where everybody does play a part, lending their strengths to the greater mission, even if it's just a teeny thing. Like Rock Talk doesn't get a ton to do here, but what she does is important simply because she's willing to help. And you know what? That's a great message for all of us. The little things that we do, they do matter. And we as our individual selves might not be able to solve really big problems. Neither can our crew, but we can all do something toward achieving bigger goals just like they did, whatever it is. And no contribution is too small. Any contribution is better than none at all. And half the time I feel like if you're just trying, you're already halfway there. Yeah. So it's important to not forget that.
Yeah. And just to kind of refer back to something I mentioned earlier, the personal responsibility that is more and more apparent in our crew is, again, seeing them grow up, sort of developing a clear moral compass, becoming selfless, protect Voyager. Gwyn says, it's the right thing to do. We can't just watch another ship being destroyed. Majel saying the same thing. It's the logical thing to do. We've got to protect Starfleet. So they've grown, really grown the sense of being selfless, the sense of personal responsibility for people around them. So, this has been a wonderful episode for, reinforcing the themes that we already talked about previously, and for kind of showing, further development, the evolution of the characters.
Yeah, and expounding on so many things, and that's not bad for a bunch of misfits from Tars Lamora. I got to say that we're really, honestly, the moral compass could have been a little gray because those were not the great conditions, and yet look at them go. Look at them go. Yeah.
So let's wrap up. I mean, we kind of left hanging on the sort of precipice again. So it's not a cliffhanger per se, like we had between some of the two-parters. But yes, we do know that both ships survived Rev 1, its drones, and the horrible Incursor. We know that we're about to head to Solum and figure out what's going on there. Situation is still harrowing. It's still just our little group of people, our little crew, against a very vengeful, all means justify the end antagonist with absolutely terrifying technology. Yeah. And of course, we have to remember the bigger trouble at hand, which is the timeline slowly but surely deteriorating. So here we are.
Right? Yeah, we can't forget that whole thing is going on too. We are far from done yet. And I am like Janeway in that Ascensia got a really important message out of Starfleet's absence, and we should definitely take note of that just because she really does show off how dangerous she is here, and she is going to use it. And so as a final thought, I want to leave off with how this episode shows that sometimes all we really have is that we can't count on anybody else to be our saviors. We have to count on ourselves. Even an organization as powerful as Starfleet can fail its people, and that's what happened here. So when you go out there, everybody, like our crew, we are the heroes that we need. Capes are optional.
We reached the end of our show, but before we go, we have one more thing to do, and that is to give you a special code you can use to enter our giveaway. And you will find this code only here. So the code is IHeartProdigy. One word, IHEARTPRODIGY. To enter, you go to the link provided in the description of this episode, or you look for it on our social media channels.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Mission Log Prodigy. If you've enjoyed our show, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our Mission Log Prodigy playlist on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, or, of course, you can find us on the podcast catcher of your choice. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, production and technical direction by Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is at missionlogpodcast.com. And if you'd like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Next week, hang on, because we're going to be on the brink of covering Brink. And cadets, don't forget to watch the episode and send us your thoughts no later than Saturday, October 26th. We can't wait to hear what you have to say, and we will feature your voice messages at the end of our next show. But to close out this show, let's hear what our cadets had to say about Ascension Parts 1 and 2.
Receiving listener communications. Message playback begins.
All right, what's your name and age?
Rook, and my age is 9.
Rook, did you like the episodes?
Yes.
What was your favorite part of the episodes?
My favorite part of the episodes was when Ascensia's ship blew up.
That was pretty cool. What did you learn from the episode?
I learned from the episode, never stop trying.
Yeah, they kept getting beaten down and they kept coming back, right?
Yeah.
Good job.
What's your name?
James.
Did you like the episode?
Yes.
What was your favorite part?
When they did the Boothby supernova into the bad guy ship and it blew up.
Do you remember who Boothby is?
Nope.
He's the groundskeeper that was a friend of Picard's at Starfleet Academy.
Ah.
And what did you learn?
I learned to never give up.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.
Tired of your car insurance rate going up, even with a clean driving record? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/Libsyn today. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.